Whispers in the fog. The night was a shroud, heavy and oppressive, cloaking the desolate highway in a veil of fog so dense it seemed to pulse with a life of its own. My name is Jake, a truck driver with over a decade of hauling cargo through the lonely arteries of America's forgotten roads. The hum of my rig's engine and the endless ribbon of asphalt were my only companions, the kind of solitude that hardens a man to the eerie whispers of the night. But nothing could have prepared me for what I encountered on that cursed stretch of road. The highway was one of those forgotten paths, winding through a no-man's land where the world seemed to hold its breath. Truckers on the CB radio had long shared hushed tales about this route, stories of abandoned cars, their drivers vanished without a trace, and strange figures glimpsed in the fog. I'd always dismissed them as campfire tales spun by lonely men to pass the long hours. But that night, as rain drummed a relentless rhythm on the roof of my cab, I began to wonder if there was truth to those whispers. The fog rolled in like a living thing, thick and suffocating, swallowing the world beyond the dim glow of my headlights. Visibility shrank to a few feet, the road ahead a ghostly blur. The engine's low rumble was muted, as if the fog itself devoured sound, leaving only an unsettling silence that pressed against my eardrums. Shadows flickered in the mist, cast by the refracted light, twisting into shapes that seemed to writhe and dance like specters. That's when I saw him, a lone figure standing motionless on the shoulder of the road. At first I thought he was a stranded motorist, a man caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. My instincts screamed to keep driving, to leave this ghostly stretch behind. But a flicker of compassion made me ease off the gas. The truck groaned to a stop beside him. He was pale, unnaturally so, his skin almost translucent in the faint glow of my headlights. The fog clung to him like a shroud, curling around his form as if reluctant to let him go. But it was his eyes that froze the blood in my veins. Large, round, and black as the void, they stared blankly into the mist. His mouth was worse, a gaping maw stretched impossibly wide, defying the limits of human anatomy. He didn't move, didn't acknowledge me, just stood there, a statue carved from nightmare. A chill crawled up my spine, and every fiber of my being urged me to flee. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the gear shift, torn between fear and the need to understand what I was seeing. Then, as I glanced back, his head turned slowly toward me, and a twisted, grotesque smile curled across his featureless face. It was no human expression. It was something born of madness, a mockery of joy that sent panic surging through me. I slammed my foot on the gas, the truck lurching forward as the engine roared. The figure receded into the fog, but his eyes lingered in my mind, burning into my soul. I grabbed the CB radio mic, desperate to warn someone, anyone, of what I'd seen. But the airwaves, usually alive with the chatter of fellow truckers, were silent. No static, no voices, just an oppressive void that mirrored the fog outside. The road stretched on, endless and unyielding, the fog refusing to lift. I pushed the accelerator to the floor, the speedometer climbing past 80, then 90, then 100 miles an hour. I needed distance, needed the safety of city lights, needed to escape the memory of that creature. The miles blurred together, but the fog clung to the truck like a predator stalking its prey. Finally, a lonely parking lot emerged from the mist, its flickering overhead lamps casting a sickly yellow glow. Exhaustion and fear clawed at me, and I decided to pull over, hoping a moment's rest would steady my nerves. I shut off the engine, locked the doors, and drew the curtains around the cab, trying to convince myself it was just fatigue playing tricks on my mind. I nestled into my bunk, the image of that pale figure with its void-like eyes and twisted smile gnawing at the edges of my consciousness. Sleep wouldn't come. The silence was too heavy, the darkness too alive. After what felt like hours of restless tossing, a sense of dread jolted me upright. My hands trembled as I fumbled to open the curtains, revealing the parking lot bathed in that eerie, flickering light. Shadows danced across the asphalt, twisting into shapes that seemed to mock the very idea of safety. Then I saw them all. 3 of them. The same nightmarish creatures, their black eyes fixed on my truck, standing like sentinels in the fog. Their mouths hung open, emitting guttural growls that vibrated through the metal walls of the cab. The air inside grew thick, heavy with a malevolent presence that seeped into my bones, chilling me from the inside out. I scrabbled for the ignition, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the key. The engine sputtered, refusing to turn over, as if it too was paralyzed by the encroaching terror. The creatures began to move, their steps unnaturally smooth, almost gliding across the pavement. Their growls grew louder, a cacophony of hunger and malice that drowned out the pounding of my own heart. I turned the key again and again, pleading with the truck to come to life. The creatures were closer now, their twisted faces illuminated by the cabin lights I'd flicked on in desperation. Their mouths stretched wider, revealing rows of jagged, uneven teeth that gleamed like shards of obsidian. Their eyes, those endless black voids, seemed to pull at my soul, threatening to drag me into their abyss. Just as their claw-like hands reached for the truck, the engine roared to life. I slammed the gear into drive, the tires screeching as the rig surged forward. In the rearview mirror, I saw them recede, their forms swallowed in the fog, but their growls echoed in the distance, a haunting reminder that they were not bound by the rules of the world I knew. I drove toward the faint glow of city lights, my heart pounding in my chest. The creatures pursued, their forms flickering in and out of the fog, moving with an unnatural speed that defied reason. They were shadows given form, nightmares made flesh, and they were relentless. But as the city's glow grew brighter, they slowed, their twisted figures halting at the edge of the urban sprawl. Their growls faded into the night, and for a moment, I thought I was safe. I parked in a well-lit truck stop, surrounded by the comforting hum of civilization. My hands still trembled as I reached for the CB mic, hoping to connect with someone, to share the terror that clung to me like the fog. But the airwaves remained silent, the static a mocking reminder of the isolation I'd felt on that cursed road. The city lights held the darkness at bay, but I couldn't shake the feeling that those creatures were still out there, lurking just beyond the glow. I spent the night in that parking lot, jumping at every shadow, every flicker of movement. As dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of gray and gold, I dared to hope the nightmare was over. But the road called me back. With the cargo still in tow, I had no choice but to continue my journey, my eyes scanning every shadow, every wisp of fog with a paranoia that had taken root deep within me. The CB crackled to life, startling me. A voice came through, rough and concerned. "Hey, you there? You okay?" I poured out my story, the fog, the creature, the pursuit, my voice trembling as I recounted the horrors. There was a long pause before the voice responded, heavy with a mix of fear and recognition. "You're not alone. We've all heard the stories. Abandoned cars, figures in the fog. Thought they were just tales, but..." The words sent a fresh chill through me. The radio buzzed with other voices, truckers sharing their own encounters with the creatures that haunted this stretch of road. Each story was different, yet the same. Those black eyes, those gaping mouth, that unrelenting terror. No one knew what they were or why they hunted the lonely highways, but their presence was undeniable. The road stretched on, the fog lingering at its edges like a predator waiting to strike. The camaraderie of the radio offered some comfort, but it couldn't erase the dread that clung to me. As I approached the stretch where I'd first seen the creature, the fog thickened, the air growing heavy with the weight of unseen eyes. A horrifying realization hit me like a freight train. This road was a loop, an endless cycle that drew travelers back into its heart. The city lights, the voices on the radio, they were illusions, tricks to lull me into a false sense of security. The creatures weren't bound by distance or geography. They were bound by time, eternal predators haunting an unending nightmare. A guttural growl pierced the fog, and the creatures emerged once more. Their black eyes locked onto me, their mouths emitting an otherworldly wail that shook the cab. I floored the gas, the engines screaming in protest, but the truck seemed anchored to the road, caught in the loop's relentless grip. The fog closed in, swallowing the world. The creatures were everywhere now, their twisted forms pressing against the truck, their claws scraping at the metal. The radio erupted in a chorus of terrified screams, warnings too late to heed. The last thing I saw was those eyes, an abyss that consumed all light, all hope. The haunted highway claimed another soul, lost to the eternal night. The fog rolled on, an unending shroud, hiding the horrors that waited for the next weary traveler. The road stretched into infinity, a cursed path where the creatures of the night reigned supreme, and escape was nothing but a fleeting dream.